Remember the Wizard of Oz? Dorothy and her friends set out across a dangerous, dazzling land, each of them searching for something they believe they've lost. Dorothy just wants to find her way home. The Scarecrow is looking for a brain, for wisdom and understanding. The Tin Man longs for a heart, for feeling and compassion. And the Lion, well, he's searching for courage. Together they brave witches, forests, and flying monkeys, all in pursuit of the mysterious, all-powerful Wizard of Oz, the one who, they believe, can fix everything. The wizard lives in a gleaming city too, full of marble halls and shining towers. Dorothy had the Emerald City. We have the City of London. Politicians, policymakers, and people covet their wizards in the city, looking for answers, stability, and salvation. They stand before the markets, believing these mighty forces hold the key to prosperity or disaster. But behind the smoke and the spectacle, what do we find? Not an all-powerful entity at all, just people, ordinary, fallible, pulling levers and sustaining the illusion of power. Because here's the truth. The markets themselves depend on the state, the currency issuer, to exist. The wizard draws his strength from the very world he pretends to control. We're told that financial markets are all-powerful, that the government must tiptoe around their moods, that spending must be reined in, because the markets might get nervous. But when we pull back the curtain, we see a financial system entirely dependent on the currency issuing state, dependent on government bonds for safe assets, dependent on the central bank for daily liquidity, dependent on government-issued money, in our case, the pound, to function at all. And of course there's guaranteed bailouts, no questions asked, when the big financial players overreach. The wizard, it turns out, is just a middleman in a machine built by public institutions. So again, who's really in charge here? And who's benefiting from the illusion? When you hear the word socialism, what comes to mind? Maybe you picture public transport, the NHS, or government welfare programs. Basically people getting something for nothing, and warnings that socialism will destroy our economy. Yet there's a form of socialism alive and well in our society. And it lies at the very heart of our financial sector. But policymakers, commentators, all tell us that governments have to borrow from financial markets on a daily basis. Isn't that true? Yes, it's certainly true for countries which don't have their own sovereign currency. But for a state like the UK, which has its own currency, government bonds are not a mechanism for borrowing. Contrary to this mainstream belief, here's what really happens. First, the government spends new money into the economy in the form of new central bank reserves and deposits in the banking system. Then, and only then, it issues bonds. In simple terms, this is a form of financial housekeeping to manage the quantity of reserves in the banking system by swapping them for interest-bearing bonds. So bonds aren't about the private sector giving up its cash to fund state projects, but to provide a safe place to park money that was previously created whilst earning a tidy sum of interest. We could look on this as a form of corporate welfare, and it's estimated that the total cost of interest payments for 2025 to 2026 will exceed £110 billion. Government bonds are the foundation of financial markets. They're correctly regarded as risk-free. They're used as benchmarks in order to price other assets. Pension funds, hedge funds, and banks all depend on them as safe interest-bearing assets. Without government bonds, the size of financial markets would be dramatically smaller. So again, who's really supporting whom? And what about the banks? Aren't they absolutely vital to the smooth running of the economy? Yes, they are. And for that very reason, bank credit is licensed and underpinned by the state because state money in the form of central bank reserves is necessary in order for banks to settle transactions with each other. If the Bank of England didn't guarantee the provision of reserves each day, the banking system and the payment system would grind to a halt. In addition, the banks enjoy the benefits of state-guaranteed deposit insurance and a lucrative relationship with the Bank of England, earning almost £30 billion per annum in the form of interest on reserves on their Bank of England accounts. In his academic paper entitled The Finance Franchise, Professor Robert Hockett of Cornell University, who specializes in monetary law and economics, compares modern finance to a public-private partnership rather than a private endeavor. But unlike any normal franchise arrangement, it's a partnership where the public takes the risk and the private sector takes the profit. So private commercial banks are not really private at all, yet they operate as wealth extractors, charging interest, fees, making profits off state-created money, and pumping inflationary credit into real estate and finance bubbles, rather than the real economy. So why does any of this matter? Because for decades, we've been told there's no money for housing, healthcare, publicly owned utilities. Meanwhile, billions are pumped daily into the financial system, often to protect asset values, not to the benefit of the majority of people. This isn't about abolishing markets. It's about seeing what's already happening. A public backstop for private gain, where financial markets depend on the state, but dictate what the state is allowed to do. Where public money props up private risk, and those warning of irresponsible spending are the most irresponsible of all. It's time we stop pretending they're the grown-ups in the room. We're told the government must be careful not to spook the markets with too much public spending. But the same government that was seemingly broke yesterday suddenly finds money to save the day. That's not capitalism. It's state-backed extraction. So next time you hear a clever quip about socialism from a city trader or economic commenter, show them behind the curtain. Explain to them that they're a beneficiary, not the boss. Just like in the musical, the day we stop giving credence to the booming voice is the day its power is gone forever. So when politicians say, we need the markets to keep things moving, remember, the markets need us even more. Yes, there is a thriving benefits system in the UK, but it's in the trading floors, not the town halls. It's in liquidity support, not libraries. It's socialism for the wealthy, hidden in plain sight, and it far outweighs the benefits system we're all lectured about by the billionaire-captured corporate media. If we want an economy that works for everyone, maybe it's time we stop pretending that public support is only for the poor, and started questioning who's really being supported and why. And you won't hear about any of this in the mainstream media, because it's bankrolled by those who don't want you to know. So please share this video and spread the word.